Bloomberg Audio Studios.
Podcasts, radio, news.
Same week, but another episode of In the City, a podcast from Bloomberg about the stories shaping the City of London. I'm Francine Lacqua.
And I'm David Merritt.
Dave, we're in the London studio again because we have all these chief executives wanting to come to talk to us ahead of the UK election.
That's right. Proper election fever. We're in the thick of it, I think it's safe to say, here at Bloomberg HQ in the city. And as you say, lots of people coming through to talk to us. And we noticed that we have the boss of one of Britain's biggest retailers, Currys, in the building. So we had to put him aside into the studio. And because this is somebody who is hearing on the ground what are consumers saying, what is the mood out there. And the economy is such a big subject in this election, and he's got a great read on it.
Yeah, he sees everything firsthand because they sell, of course, items such as vacuum cleaners, laptops, iPhones to British consumers. So he's going to talk to us about the cost of living crisis, how people are spending differently, and what he's expecting from Labour policies.
And I think he's been a Conservative donor in the past, so prospects not looking so great for the Tories, of course, at this moment when we were taping this, if the polls are accurate. So what is his view on the Tory chances, but also how he might be embracing a potential new Labour government?
Welcome to the City of London.
The City of London.
The next station is Bank. Please mind the gap between the train and the platform.
The financial heart of the country.
The City.
The City.
Welcome to In the City.
Stand clear of the doors, please.
Well, we have with us Alex Baldock, Chief Executive of Currys. Now, for our international listeners, and we do have many, Currys is an electricals retailer, not something we'd have to explain to anyone who lives in the UK. They're everywhere, Dave.
Including all around your house, I hear, or your...
I'm a customer. I don't know whether I need a disclaimer for that, but I am a good Currys customer.
Well, welcome to In the City, Alex.
Thank you very much, and I'm delighted to hear we've got some customers as well as some interrogators in the room.
Alex, talk to us a little bit about what kind of economy you see in the UK right now. So we're, 3 weeks from an election. The consumer has been feeling a little bit of a pinch. You have the cost of living crisis. The economy is kind of better than expected, but flatlining.
The UK consumer definitely still, speaking in general terms, feels hard-pressed and is very conscious of a cost of living crisis and is watchful of their spending, particularly on bigger ticket discretionary items such as the technology that Currys sells. All of that's certainly true. However, if you wanted to take a more optimistic view of the prospects for the UK consumer, you could. For a start, consumer confidence, as measured by GfK and the like, has been up pretty much, with the exception of 2 months, every month for 22 months. Real wages are continuing in growth. Employment is still high, and retained savings are still relatively high for this stage of the cycle. And all of that is starting to translate into a more benign environment for selling the sort of stuff that Currys sells.
How important is the inflation number to your business and to that sense of sentiment? The day we're taping this, we've seen finally, for the first time for years, inflation out at the 2% target. Is that a big milestone, do you think, in terms of changing the mood out there among consumers?
The mood has already been improving amongst consumers, as I say, that whether you look at stated consumer confidence or whether it's confidence in one's own finances or propensity to buy bigger ticket items, all of that has been trending upwards for getting on for 2 years now. But undoubtedly, real wage growth, both perceived and actual, is really important for consumer confidence and their willingness to loosen the purse strings. And so inflation coming down to the target will definitely help, yeah.
We had a technical recession here in this country. Did you notice that we were in this contraction period? Did it feel like we were going to reverse, or was that more of a kind of technicality, really? And broadly, the economy's on an upward tick?
Well, if the technology market can be a useful proxy for customers' big ticket spending, discretionary spending, then the technology market has been in decline for every year for 4 years in the UK since the pandemic. So it certainly hasn't felt like a technicality for those of us who sell technology, no, because we've been running up a down escalator for the past year when it comes to financial performance. Now, that said, I mean, in Currys' case, we've been able to show 4 years of improving financial performance in the UK through self-help on margin and on cost, even in the absence of any sales growth. But looking forward, I think this is the year where, in part because of recovering consumer sentiment, but also in part because of various opportunities specific to us, this is a year where we can see a realistic prospect of a return to market and market growth and the sales growth for us as well.
But this is what, laptops? Did people spend a lot on laptops and technology to upgrade their homes during COVID? And so is that a natural kind of trend?
That's one factor, yeah. And the replacement cycle, I mean, if it's roughly 4 years, I mean, it varies between products, but many pandemic era purchases will be coming up for renewal, yeah. But there are others. AI is, I'm amazed we managed to get this far into the podcast without mentioning AI. But,
we are AI.
There you go. Very convincing, if I may say. So, but AI is going to have many effects, direct and indirect, on businesses like us. But it does provide us with more things to sell. So we've already seen, for example, AI-powered mobile phones take off quite nicely, and consumers are starting to see how this rather abstract and maybe slightly frightening technology can be useful to them. For example, with simultaneous translation or with help making them world-class photographers. There are real use cases coming from AI now, which are meaningful to consumers.
How excited are you about the election? We're all very excited around here. Two weeks to go. The result doesn't look to be in much doubt at this point, but what's going to be the fallout from that? I mean, it's sort of steady as they goes with the Labour Party manifesto in terms of the economics. You've donated to the Conservatives in the past, but how are you feeling about the prospect of a new government?
Well, I mean, the first thing is my job is to make sure that Currys is successful, whoever's in office, and so that's how I approach it. Now, there's a few things that businesses tend to look for, and Currys included. I mean, the first is mood music. I mean, this matters, and pro-business mood music is now coming out of the current Labour Party in a way that perhaps wasn't always the case. I mean, second, and you'll forgive me because I'm sure you're tired of people like me banging on for the need for stability. It's on every business leader's lips, but it's true. I mean, wild swings in policy, interest rates, currencies, prices, regulation aren't helpful. Nor is a more general sense that the UK is a risky or a difficult place to do business. And so, to the extent that there are, in the words of one US investor, that there are grown-ups in charge on both sides of the aisle now, as well as providing a stable environment. There are also things any government should be able to do to provide the conditions for growth. And both parties are intent on growth as a priority, which is good. And we would argue that there are things that any party should do on skills, on infrastructure, on taxation, on regulation, and on the rule of law, by the way, when it applies to retail colleagues.
What are you expecting in terms of workers' rights under a Labour government? So you've increased actually base pay for a lot of your employees, I think by almost 9%, if not more. Right, for the start of 2024,
by 29% over the past 3 years for our base colleagues.
But this year, 9%.
That's right. As Currys, we're a retailer, and retail is the largest private sector employer in the country. I mean, we've got 3 million jobs in our sector, and we at Currys, we're certainly not the only retailer who are determined to provide really good, secure jobs that are often many people's first job in the employment ladder, and provide them with a good first step in that career ladder.
Do you think you'll have to increase pay further under a Labour government?
Let's see. I mean, the national minimum wage has risen significantly in recent years. I mean, we've said and we've acted on it that we want to keep ahead of that and to make sure that our colleagues, both on their base pay, but also, by the way, on their variable pay and on their other benefits, are well rewarded. I mean, I think if we take a step back for a moment, I think any government would do well to recognise that modern businesses don't necessarily have to be compelled to treat their colleagues well. And it's not just because we're nice guys, but for us to attract and retain top talent, as any business must do, you have to treat your colleagues well. It's a commercial imperative as well as the right thing to do, which is why businesses like Currys invest so much, not just in reward, but in development, in learning, in training, in communications, in leadership. Yeah,
but isn't it different if a government mandates it?
Well, I mean, clearly the law is the law, and we're going to more than abide by that, as we have done with base rates of colleague pay. All I would say is there's clearly a balance to be struck here, and here Currys takes the same view as our industry, as articulated by the BRC, I mean our trade body, that further significant increases to the national minimum wage should be done with caution. because clearly there is a balance here between wanting to protect and fairly reward people, but also providing incentives for further job creation for businesses. And as I say, there are many jobs at stake in retail. There are 3 million of them.
I just want to ask you about the broader UK market. You're one of the FTSE 250 companies, the biggest 250 companies publicly traded in Britain. You've had an approach this year from the US hedge fund Elliott. What does that say about the valuations across the whole of the UK market? There's a lot of commentary around Britain being undervalued compared to other sizable comparable economies. Is Britain cheap at the moment? Companies like yours too cheap? That's why the US hedge funds are circling?
Well, you could make that argument. I mean, one fact is that we recently sold our Greek business. And if the whole of Currys was valued at the same level as we sold the Greek business for, the share price would be twice what it is today. So, I mean, that's one fact. But there are obviously plenty of others, and some of which are beyond the control of any one company. I mean, not much we can do about 30 consecutive months of net outflows from UK equities, for example. It's not in my power to do something about the unnecessary friction of the stamp duty on share sales, for example. But all of that said,
I mean, there are all these measures the current government are trying to put in place to improve all of that, aren't they, to reverse the flows? But of course, they're about to potentially leave office. So do you think the government has a role in this, don't they, in terms of regulation? And
well, of course, but I mean, we go back to the things we were talking about before. I mean, ultimately, the UK equity market is largely, there are some technical factors there, like stamp duty on shares, for example, but ultimately, the UK equity market is a reflection of the broader UK economy. And if the UK economy is stable and seen as a good place to do business, if the skills, the infrastructure, the tax, the planning, the regulatory regimes are all in good nick, that will have a beneficial impact on UK equities as well. But I do want to draw a distinction here. You won't find me whining about the state of UK equities when it comes to the Currys share price. I see it as my job to make sure that we're doing the things to make sure that investors want to invest in our shares. And in our case, it's quite straightforward. The UK business, Currys in the UK, has been showing great momentum for the past 4 years. We need to keep that going. We've had some issues with our international business. That's getting back on track, and we need to keep that going. And we've got now rock solid balance sheet and liquidity, and we need to keep that. Now, happily, all three of those things are heading in the right direction. It's my job to make sure that they continue doing so, and when they do, that will ultimately be rewarded by the share price.
Was it a nightmare having Elliott on your back?
No. I really don't see it that way.
For real?
No, not at all. I mean, firstly, it was actually pretty flattering. They're no fools, and they saw value, as we do, in our business, and they backed our prospects and our plans. So that was the first thing. Now, that said, the board decided that the two bids substantially undervalued the business, and I suppose that's the second thing that's flattering is when you get the board and 8 of the top 10 shareholders within 24, 48 hours, whatever it was, coming out publicly and saying, no, there's a lot more in the tank in this business. We believe in the current plans and we want to see them realised. That was good validation for all the hard work of all our thousands of colleagues as well. So I chose to experience it as flattering, and while
You're an optimistic CEO.
Well, that's part of the job, right? And these things can be as distracting as you allow them to be. That interest from private equity has gone away for now. But honestly, I don't spend a great deal of my time sitting speculating and worrying about it. I spend my time on the things that we can control, and as we were just talking about, there's plenty that we can.
One thing that some companies have decided to do to fix the valuation problem is to move the listing to New York. Has that crossed your mind at all? Or?
No, it hasn't. We're
committed to the London Stock Exchange.
You can have it here first, okay. an exclusive for Bloomberg. No, we're committed to the London Stock Exchange, and we're committed to making it work here.
What do you want Labour to do when it comes to the stock exchange, attracting more capital, FDI, and really supporting, I guess, your growth?
Well, I think, as I say, there's some technical things that any government can do. I mean, taking stamp duty off share dealing seems like a sensible removal of unnecessary friction. But more than that, I think there are plenty of speculation about what might or might not be done to encourage UK-based pension funds to invest more of their money in UK equities. And fine. But I think more generally, as I say, UK equity markets are a reflection of UK PLC, a reflection of the economy at large. And if there's a stable environment where the UK is not seen as a risky or volatile place to do business, and when skills and infrastructure and planning and regulation and tax are all in good shape, that will translate to a healthier stock market.
Alex, when you look at, what happens after the election, what's the most pressing concern for businesses in the UK under a Labour government?
I think the most pressing concern for any business under any administration is for the conditions for growth to be there. Everyone agrees that growth is essential, and to be able to provide that growth, a government needs to provide the right conditions for it. It needs to provide the right stable environment, first of all, and avoid sort of unpleasant shocks and the perception that this is a risky place to do business. But then attend to making sure that the skills and the infrastructure and the taxation regime and the planning and the regulation and the energy costs and all of the various things that any government needs to do to enable businesses to prosper and to grow, to allow business to be a powerful force for societal good, which I believe it can and should be. That's the regime that governments need to put into place.
Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And that was a long list, Alex.
Are they going to do it?
I have no worries, but... Thanks for listening to this week's In the City from Bloomberg. This episode was hosted by me, Francine Lacqua, and David Merritt. It was produced by Summer Sadi. Production support and sound design by Moses Andam. Brendan Francis Newman is our executive producer. Sage Bauman is head of podcasts. Special thanks to Alex Baldock and Sabah Meddings. Please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts.